Dad didn't understand why his daughter's grave keeps growing unlike other graves. He visited her grave every time to spend time with her as he noticed her grave was growing up like a hill. Surprised in what could be happening. Could she be trying to pass a message, he pondered, because it has been 2 years she didn't, but her grave keep growing. Before you scroll, tell me, where are you watching from and what time is it right now? I want to see how far this story is traveling. Drop it in the comments and don't forget to hit subscribe while you're at it. They buried her on a clean, sunlit afternoon when the wind smelled like pine and pennies. 2 years later, the mound should have settled, grass knitting itself into a soft, even cover like a green quilt. That's what the other graves did. They sank, they smoothed, they disappeared into the tidy order of evergreen rest. But not Lily's. Lily's grave pushed upward. It didn't happen all at once. No dramatic geyser of dirt, no heave that split the earth. It was stubborn, almost polite, a slow swelling that surprised Daniel every time he walked the path lined with magnolias. In April, he'd swear it stood higher than in March. By midsummer, there was a knuckle to the earth, a rounded hill like the back of some beast sleeping under the sod. The grass grew faster there, thick and emerald, even when the rest of the cemetery browned under heat. Sometimes dew beaded on that hill long after the morning had burned, an extra shimmer that clung like sweat. He touched it 100 times. His palm learned the curve. His heart learned a new kind of ache. You aren't supposed to compare grief, but Daniel did. He compared everything now. Mrs. Price's plot 3 rows over had flattened perfectly by year 1. Old Mr. Jenkins' grandchildren had laid down a marble ledger, and the ground beneath it lay obedient and still. But Lily's grave rose in defiance of rules and schedules, and the cemetery keepers shrug. Ground's funny sometimes, Mr. Harlan had told him, leaning on his rake. Soil expands, critters dig, coffins shift. Happens. Does it happen every month? Daniel asked. Upward. Harlan's eyes flicked toward the hill. He took off his cap and smoothed his hair, though none needed smoothing. Comes and goes, I guess. It didn't come and go. It came and came. At first, Daniel told no one. He wasn't about to feed the town's appetite for gossip, not with Lily's name. People in Brookhaven had been kind when she died. They'd sent casseroles and money for the headstone. But kindness curdles into curiosity if you let it. So he kept the secret in his chest with the other sharp things, and told himself he was seeing patterns because that's what grief makes you do. But then he measured. On a Tuesday, he tore a page from his job site planner and sketched the grave clumsily. He brought a cheap tape measure and took notes like a surveyor. North edge 2 inches higher. Center risen 1/2 inch since last week. South slope steep. He came back 2 days later. And then the next day. By the end of the month, his notes were a tremor of numbers, messy and trembling like the handwriting of a man trying to balance on a rocking boat. It had been 2 years since the accident. The word still balked in his mouth. Accident. It felt too small. The truck's brakes had failed on the downhill near Highway 9, and Lily was in the wrong place at the wrong second. She'd been 13. She had freckles that summer. She loved lemon sherbet and ugly cat videos and the way rain hammered the trailer's tin roof. You should never outlive your children. If you do, the world turns wrong side out, and every ordinary thing becomes a mirror of what you lost. Daniel could not step into a grocery store without seeing the cereal she liked. He could not hear a hard rain without counting seconds to the thunder like she used to do to measure storms. He'd tried church again, sat in the back, and watched people raise their hands to songs that tasted like tin in his mouth. He'd tried closing the curtains. He'd tried sending the curtains to Goodwill so the light would have less to fight with. But he had not tried ignoring the grave. The grave refused to be ignored. By August, the hill was tall enough that you could see it from the main path. People noticed. He heard 2 women in wide-brimmed hats whispering about that one that won't stay down. He caught a teenage boy snapping a picture. He stood between the camera and the mound and stared until the boy slunk away, muttering about the weird guy who sleeps in the cemetery. He didn't sleep there, but some nights he thought about it. Because there were other things too, little things that didn't belong to weather or worms. The first time, a violet bloomed on the slope in a perfect, stubborn circle, even though Mr. Harlan swore he'd sprayed weeds last week. The next morning there were 2 circles. A week later the violet rings had doubled and shifted uphill, as if moving. Daniel brought his old field compass and joked to the empty air. You pointing somewhere, kiddo? The needle quivered. He told himself that was the wind. Another evening, he found 5 smooth pebbles placed on the headstone, each the size of a dime, white against the gray. He hadn't put them there, and Harlan shook his head at the idea. Kids, the keeper grunted. Or church folk. People like to leave little nothings. But these weren't nothing. The pebbles' edges showed riverware, the kind you only got from the creek behind Daniel's first rental, the creek where he'd taught Lily to skip stones. He touched each pebble, thumb flashing with memory. They were lined up not quite straight. 3, then a gap, then 2. He took a picture. He Googled pebbles meaning grave at 3 a.m. He fell asleep with his phone on his chest and dreamed of Lily's fingers tapping the table before dinner in 3s and 2s, her old habit when she had a secret she wanted him to guess. He woke with his heart in his throat. "Are you trying to tell me something, baby?" he asked the hill, feeling ridiculous and raw. "Because I'm listening. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere." So he made a decision. He would come every day, not just Tuesdays or the days the ache was unbearable. Every day, rain or heat. He would sit and watch and wait and catch whatever message was trying to push through the dirt like a seed straining for sun. He told no one except the grave. The next week became a ritual. Daniel clocked out of the parts warehouse at 4, stopped by Thornton's for a coffee he never finished, and walked the path with the magnolias. He greeted the statue of the weeping angel with a nod like she was a neighbor. He brushed leaves from Lily's stone and mowed the strip Harlan's mower always missed. Then he simply stayed. He learned the cemetery's sounds. There was a squirrel with a bad leg that sounded like a metronome on leaves. There was a far freight train whose horn arrived in the afternoon like a thread through cloth. There was the soft slap of a flag against a pole and the way wind changed when rain decided. And then there was the new sound. He heard it on a Wednesday when the sun tried and failed to pierce a thin gray sky. It came, faint and hollow, from beneath the hill, a sound like a sigh inside a bottle. He held his breath and pressed his ear to the turf. The damp of the grass kissed his temple. The sound returned, delicate and indecisive. It might have been his own blood in his ear. It might have been everything he hoped to hear. He jerked back, ashamed of wanting. That night he bought a cheap trail camera from the hunting store, the kind that camouflaged itself like bark and promised to catch deer thieves. He told the clerk he was getting raccoons in his trash. He told himself he was getting raccoons in his mind. He tucked the camera behind a boxwood at the foot of Lily's plot and set it to time-lapse every minute from dusk until dawn. Back home, the trailer felt emptier than usual. He microwaved a burrito and forgot to eat it. He sat in Lily's room where everything still smelled like mango shampoo if you were willing to pretend. He traced the stickers on her mirror with his thumb. He played a voicemail she'd left on his birthday. A voicemail he both hoarded and dreaded because it could undo him in 3 words. "Love you, Dad." At midnight, the storm started. The good kind, thunder like distant furniture moving. He slept for the first time all week. In the morning, he returned to evergreen rest while steam still rose off the road like ghosts. He pulled the SD card with fingers that didn't feel attached to him and jammed it into his phone. The first 100 images were nothing but light sliding across grass, blue to gold to silver. Typical. He muttered a curse at himself and almost stopped. Then frame 237 stitched to frame 238 in a tiny flicker of wrongness. He zoomed in. He pinched and dragged and wished he'd bought a better camera. The timestamp read 2:11 a.m. In 237 the hill was itself. In 238 it was higher by maybe a breath, as if the ground had inhaled. In 239 it sank. In 240 it rose again, a blind rhythm. His scalp prickled. He scrolled, heart in his mouth. The hill breathed through the hour like it had lungs. At 3:02 a.m. the breath paused. At 3:03 a.m. the camera caught motion, a smudge at the very edge of the headstone. He froze the frame and dragged brightness to max. The smudge sharpened. It was a handprint, not a full one. Just the crescent of 4 small fingers in mud, as if someone had gripped the stone from the far side and pulled themselves up for a peek. He dropped the phone. When he picked it up, his own hands were shaking so badly he almost hurled it into the grass. He forced himself to breathe like the hill had breathed, slow and measured. He rewound. He watched again. The handprint, appearing in 1 minute and muddying the letters of Lily and Mathers between I and L, etc., then vanishing in the next rain-sheen frame. He didn't call the police. He didn't call anyone. Who would he call? "Hi, Sheriff. The ground is breathing and my dead daughter is leaving handprints. He put the phone in his pocket and sat down hard on the cool edge of the stone border. He stared at the hill as if staring could solve it. He whispered into the breeze, "If you're here, if this is you, if this is anything, talk to me. Please." A bird hopped nearby, head cocked. A fat cloud opened and let the sun through like a secret. He felt foolish and also 10 again, waiting for a magician to show him the coin hidden in his ear. That afternoon he brought Lily's journal. He had never read it before. It had been under her bed the way girls keep journals, with stickers peeling from the cover and a pen stuck so deep in the spiral it bent the rings. He had promised himself he wouldn't violate the last private space she'd had, but the grave had rewritten rules. He sat cross-legged and let the pages breathe. They breathed hearts doodled in margins and homework complaints and a lot of "this sucks," and one page where she wrote, in neat underlined letters, "Things I will tell Dad when I'm brave." He stopped there. He put his finger on the page. He heard his pulse thud in his skin. 1. I keep the light on because I think something is in the hallway, but when you come I'm not afraid. 2. I hate gym class. 3. I really want a guitar. 4. Sometimes I hide at the creek because I like it better than school. 5. When I die. He couldn't read the rest. The sentence broke, replaced by a smear of ink like a raindrop had fallen there months before Rain knew it would be needed. He gulped air that wasn't enough. That night, he told the grave about the list. He told Lily he would have bought 2 guitars if she'd asked. He told her he had kept the hallway light on since the day after she left. He told her everything people keep to themselves because saying it makes it too true. When he looked up from talking, the violet rings had appeared again. Not around the grave this time. 3 little blooms trembled at the foot of the stone, then a gap, and then 2. 3. Pause. 2. He whispered it aloud and felt the click of recognition deep in his chest. 3s and 2s. Lily's code. He had never understood it when she was alive. "You and your secret knock," he'd tease, tapping back on table corners. Now the grave knocked. 3. Pause. 2. He tapped the stone, embarrassed and hopeful. 3. Pause. 2. A wind came from nowhere and fluttered the pages of the journal. On the page after the list, a sketch he'd missed earlier stared up at him. The cemetery path drawn in pencil, crude but unmistakable. The magnolias, the curve of the hill, the angle of the weeping angel's wings. At the end of the path, Lily had drawn a tiny X under the word listen. He didn't sleep that night either. He drove back at 10 with a flashlight in his mouth, feeling like a thief and a priest. He stood on the path and closed his eyes. "Listen," she had written. He did. At first he heard nothing but cricket metronomes and the tailless squirrel complaining. Then a new sound threaded through. Tap, tap, pause, tap, tap, like a little hammer trying to spell. He followed it. It led him past Mrs. Price and the Spanish family with the bright paper flowers and the soldier whose boots were always shined. The tapping grew louder and more erratic until he stood again at Lily's mound. He crouched. He pressed his palm flat to the grass. Tap, pause, tap, tap. Faster now, like excitement. "Okay," he breathed. "Okay, I'm here." The ground warmed under his hand. That was impossible. It was late September, and the night had bit the edges of everything. But heat seeped into his palm, as if the earth wanted to keep him. He ripped his hand away, not from fear, exactly, from scale. From the hugeness of wanting the world to be more than the world. He laughed once, the kind of laugh that keeps a sob from breaking out. He lay on his back like a child stargazing and looked up at the black. The magnolias made cutouts out of the sky. He let the tapping become his heartbeat. He stayed until cold finally bullied him home. He started carrying a little notebook every day. He logged times of growth, weather, the appearance of violets, the number of pebbles. 3 and 2. 3 and 2. Sometimes the pattern shifted to 3 and 1 and 2, and he made arrows next to it, because that felt like a sentence. He did not know the grammar, but he trusted the voice. On Saturday, he saw shoe prints. Tiny, too small to belong to a vandal, too deliberate to belong to a deer. He followed them to the gate, where they dissolved into ordinary dirt. He asked Mr. Harlan if he'd seen any children around. "Not after sundown," Harlan said. "You been here after sundown, Mr. Mathers?" The look suggested rules. Daniel shrugged, hypocrite and father. "I come when she's calling." Harlan's mouth softened like somebody remembering a name. He gestured toward Lily's plot. "That one, it's different." His rake scratched at the path. You ever think maybe it's well? Not ours to understand. He wasn't a mystical man, Harlan, but grief humbles even the practical ones. Daniel nodded because words were big and clumsy. Sunday evening, he found something else, the locket. It lay half buried at the crown of the hill, a circle of metal blinking like a coin in the last light. He knew it instantly. He and Lily had gotten it at the county fair the summer she turned 11, the booth that stamped your initials while you waited. LM, she'd said, and laughed because the letters looked like a tiny person falling over when you squished them together. They hadn't buried the locket with her. He would have remembered that. He would have remembered closing the chain around empty. He picked it up with both hands like it might break. It was warm. Inside was the grainy photo Lily had taken of the two of them in the photo booth with the awful curtain, their heads smashed together, their smiles so big they looked like they'd borrowed them. The glass wasn't fogged. No grit had leaked in. It was as if the locket had just been set down. He felt dizzy. He squatted until his head cleared and the world steadied. Thank you, he whispered before he knew he was going to say it. I see you. He decided then, with a seriousness that made his back straighten, that he would quit pretending this was nothing. Lily was speaking. From where? From what? He didn't know. But she was speaking, and he would answer. He would come every day. He would chart, and he would listen, and he would follow the knocks until they spelled something he could say out loud without breaking. He didn't see the person watching from the path. He didn't see the shadow duck as he turned, or the faint scuff where a knee had pressed dirt. He didn't hear the tiny breath sucked in when he said, I see you, because the rain started again then, and rain always makes a good cover for secrets. He held the locket to his heart and hugged the hill with his eyes. Tell me, he said into the early dark, the magnolias holding their breath with him. Whatever you're trying to tell me, I'll hear it. The wind climbed through the trees with the sound of pages turning. Behind him, very softly, 3 taps, a pause, and 2. By Monday, Daniel had a system that would have impressed any detective and worried any therapist. Notebook, compass, trail cam, lawn shears, thermometer from the hardware aisle because he swore the mound ran a fever after sunset. He logged every shift and shiver like a man mapping earthquakes under his own house. The grave didn't flatten. It swelled. Little victories of green kept surfacing, tight, stubborn violets, tough blades of new grass, a ring of clover like a bracelet. 3, pause, 2. 3, pause, 2. The pattern threaded through everything. Petals, pebbles, even the way the dew beaded at dawn. He said it out loud to steady himself. I'm here, kiddo. Keep talking. That night a front rolled in fast, clouds marching low and iron-colored, the kind that makes streetlights snap on before supper. Daniel felt the pressure change in his bones. He locked the trailer because habit is a thing you can still control and grabbed his flashlight. He didn't even pretend to the clerk at Thornton's. Just coffee black. He turned toward Evergreen Rest with the kind of hurry you get when you know somebody's waiting. At the gate he paused. The cemetery had an after-hours hush, the sound of a church taking a breath between hymns. Rain freckled his cheeks. He clicked off the flashlight. He didn't want to spook whatever it was that came at 2 in the morning and left handprints the size of hope. The magnolias lifted and settled in the wind. Gravel ticked under his boots. As he stepped off the path and into the grass near Lily's Hill, he saw it. A shape small as a summer shadow, crouched at the crown of the mound. The shape was all knees and elbows and determination, a kidbird posture. For a beat, they simply looked at each other, the shape frozen, Daniel's heart doing a drum solo in his throat. Then the shape bolted. Hey! Daniel's voice startled him. He wasn't used to shouting anymore. Wait! He ran, stumbled, caught himself, and went after the shadow down the row of headstones. The rain came harder, silver rods stitching ground to sky. The kid was quick, skittering between markers, slipping once, recovering. Daniel was not quick. Grief puts rocks in your pockets. He reached the path just as the figure reached the iron gate, squeezed through a gap wider than a grown man's shoulders, and vanished into the night beyond the arch. Daniel stood with his palms on his knees, listening to his breath and the soak of rain in his jacket, and the way the world holds still when 2 people have just missed each other by inches. He went back to the grave shaking, half from adrenaline and half from something holier. He clicked on the flashlight and let the beam walk the mound. There, new soil, darker than the rest, hand-scooped, laid gently. A child's handful, several of them, smoothed into the hill like pats on a sleeping dog. Fresh violets, too. Roots still tender, tucked into a crescent that mimicked a smile. On the headstone, 5 pebbles again, 3, a gap, 2. And at the base of the stone, something glimmered under the flashlight like a wink. A key. House key size. Gold paint worn to silver at the edges. He picked it up and thumbed the little tag looped to it with a rubber band. 2 letters stamped into the soft metal like teeth in tinfoil. CR. Creek Road, he whispered. His old rental's address. The flashlight jumped in his hand. He turned, expecting. He didn't know what he expected. A voice. An angel. Lily. There was only rain and the quiet discipline of graves standing where they'd been told. Okay. His voice sounded steadier than he felt. Okay, I'm following. He went at first light. Creek Road had long since bent its back under newer neighborhoods. The rental he and Lily had shared when she was 9, the one with the slanting porch and the view of winter through the chinks, sat behind a chain-link fence tired of arguing. Weeds poked through the walkway. The mailbox yawned. He stood there with the key in his fist, and the kind of memory that steals your breath. Lily barefoot on the porch railing, daring the June to be hotter. Lily with a popsicle that outlasted her patience. Lily sitting on the step, knees to chin, saying quietly, "It's easier here. It feels like us." He unlocked the door. The smell punched him in the face. Not rot, not mold. Dust and lemon cleaner, like someone had been trying. Inside was spare and neat. Somebody's cast-off couch sat where theirs used to be. The kitchen was empty, but for a note taped to the fridge with a strip of blue painter's tape. Listen. 3 letters. Same as the journal page. Same as the X under the word. His laugh was a little wild around the edges. All right, kid. I'm listening to a refrigerator. A soft thump in the back made him almost drop the flashlight again. He would have put money on being alone. He moved down the hallway slow, breath shallow, the way you do when you don't want to scare a deer. A door stood ajar at the end. Lily's old room. He nudged it open with his boot. On the floor beneath the window sat a plastic storage bin with its lid crooked. Taped to it, another note in the same blocky, careful hand. A child's hand trying very hard, for Daniel. He didn't sit. He folded straight down because his knees no longer belonged to him. He pulled off the lid and found what grief had taught him to expect least of all, gentleness. Inside lay a dozen small things, each wrapped in paper towel and taped with patient, hard-won tape. He unwrapped them like artifacts, a guitar pick with a chipped edge, a photo booth strip of Lily and a narrow-faced girl with a tooth gap, a spiral notebook labeled Science, ZOEM, a purple shoelace, a broken chain with half of a heart pendant reading STFRI for best friends, a cheap plastic recorder like third graders learn to squeal, a folded map of Brookhaven with 3 dots in red marker. Cemetery, Creek Road, County Rec Center. He said the letters out loud before his mouth could explain it to his brain. CRC. No, not CRC. The rec center. He saw it then as if the map had grown a voice. 3 places that held him and her. The walk of their old life. Under the map lay a ziplocked parcel of letters, scrawled with more of the careful block handwriting. He ripped the plastic because a man can only be patient for so long. Mr. Daniel. The first line stunned him. Mr. Daniel. Not Dad. Not Sir. A kid who had not yet asked for the right to be familiar. My name is Zoe. I am Lily's best friend. I don't think you remember me because I only came to your trailer twice, and you were always working. Lily used to talk about you like you were a superhero who fixed things with your hands. She said you could make anything straight again if you stared at it long enough. His breath broke like a wave, noisy, then nothing. I don't know how to say this right, so I will do it like a science report. Question. How to keep Mr. Daniel alive when Lily died. Observation. After the funeral you did not talk in the grocery. You looked at your shoes a lot. Lily told me about the code 3 to 2 because we used it in class. I liked it. I kept it. Hypothesis. If I make Lily's grave talk, he will come. If he comes every day, he will keep breathing. If he keeps breathing, then I can ask him to read the thing I found. Materials. Dirt. Good. Violets. From Mrs. Beam's yard, sorry. Pebbles. From the creek. The ones you and Lily threw. She showed me the place. Locket. I took it at the fair when she wasn't looking because I wanted one too, but then I felt bad and kept it safe. Key. From Ms. Janet after she moved. Courage. Borrowed. Daniel shut his eyes. Rain pelted the windows like knuckles. Procedure. 1. Bring a little dirt each night. Make the grave look like breathing. 2. Make patterns 3 to 2. 3. Put the locket so you know this is Lily, not a prank. I am not a prank, I promise. 4. Give you the key. 5. Take you to this box. 6. Give you the letter that is not from me. His hands shook so badly, he had to brace the pages on his knee. Results. You came. You listened. You followed. I cried when you chased me because I got scared, but also happy. I am sorry for scaring you. I did not know how to do magic, so I did kid magic. Conclusion. Please don't be mad. Please read the other letter. I think it will fix a thing. Under Zoe's was another envelope. Older, the paper soft from being handled too much. On the front, for Dad, open when you're ready. The handwriting wasn't blocky. It was Lily's. Fast, slanted, impatient with pens. Daniel forgot how to breathe in a useful way. He put a hand on the floor to stop the room from swaying and slid his thumb gently under the flap. Inside, 3 notebook pages torn from the same spiral he had held at the grave. There were doodles in the margins, lightning bolts, a guitar, a magnolia blossom with too many petals. Hey, Dad. If you're reading this, it means I was brave, but also chicken. Brave because I wrote it. Chicken because I didn't tell you at supper. Don't be mad. I'm not good at mouth words. He laughed and cried in the same sound. This is my secret knock letter. 3 to 2. I have 2 secrets. First secret. Sometimes I go to Zoe's after school when I say I'm at the rec center. Her mom sleeps a lot, and I don't like leaving her alone. It's not her fault. She's sick, the kind that makes you forget chores, not the kind you catch. Zoe is good. If anything happens to me, ever you have to check on Zoe. Please. Pinky swear times a million. Asterisk asterisk. Second secret. I put a time capsule by the creek with the photo booth pictures and the other half of the heart and the set list of the band I'm going to have when I learn guitar. It's stupid, but you have to find it because I put a letter inside from you. Surprise. Okay, I wrote it as you. I do that sometimes. Write dad letters to myself when you're working late because it makes me feel like you're already saying the things I know you'd say. It's not weird. Okay, it's a little weird. But if anything happens, will you please go read what you already said? I know that makes no sense, but it does in my head. Also, I love you. Asterisk asterisk. P.S. Don't be sad. Play thunder counting when it rains and save the light for the hallway because I still don't like it dark. Lily. He pressed the paper to his chest like an inhaler. Of all the places grief could break a man, this felt almost merciful, in a room where she had planned to keep being alive. He wiped his face on his sleeve and grabbed the map, the dot at the creek burning like a coal. He tucked both letters into his jacket as if he could graft them to himself, locked the door behind him, and ran. The creek hadn't changed. Water is stubborn about its path. The willow still leaned like a tired woman. The flat rock they'd called the stage, because Lily would stand on it and announce cloud shapes to nobody stood where it always had. He knelt and let the earth under it smell his palms. After a minute, his fingers found plastic, the corner of a container slick with mud. He dug like a dog who knows what it is to want and brought up a cookie tin wrapped in 3 layers of grocery bags and duct tape. He peeled it open. Inside were time in a jar, the other half of the best friend's heart, 3 guitar picks, the set list, 1. Thunder Song 2. Lemon Sherbet 3. Cat Video Blues. A Polaroid of Zoe and Lily grinning so hard it looked like a dare, and an envelope labeled From Dad to Lily, by Lily, with 7 smiley faces and 1 skull, because she couldn't resist herself. He unfolded it, and his own voice came back to him written in a 13-year-old's hand. Dear Lily, I am proud of you even when I forget to say it out loud. You make the world a thing I can stand in. You make hard days look like smaller rocks. When you sing badly, I like it better than when strangers sing good. I'm not good at a lot of stuff you're supposed to be good at. Money and making pancakes not burn, but I am good at this, being your dad. I will always be your dad even if I'm bad at it. And even if you think I don't notice your secret codes, I do. I just pretend not to so you can teach me later. I love you. Past the creek, past the road, past every rain. He folded over on himself and sobbed a kind of sob that cleans a room. The sky, kindly, let rain hide him. When he could stand up without falling down, he looked toward the path. A figure stood at the bend, small, arms crossed hard over a red sweatshirt like a shield. Hair in a messy bun. Face thinner than it should be, eyes older than they had any right to be. Zoe? He said, because sometimes the obvious still needs to be asked. She nodded once. Not a twitch of apology, just readiness for whatever came next. I thought you would figure it. Her voice had that raspy, tough quality kids get when the world has made them older. He started toward her, slower than his heart wanted. You did all that, he said softly. The dirt. The flowers. The pebbles. I did, she said, lifting her chin like she knew she might be punished and had decided to own all of it anyway. And the locket. I kept it because I wanted us to match, and then I felt like a thief. I brought it back. Her eyes slid to the tin in his hand. Did you read it? I did. He held up the letter Lily had written as him. I read both. Zoe's mouth trembled. She gripped the sleeves at her elbows tighter. I'm sorry for scaring you. After the funeral you stopped talking to people who weren't rocks. I thought if Lily was still talking. He moved without deciding, closing the distance, kneeling so their faces were level. It was strange how easy it was to know what to do with his hands after 2 years of not knowing. He put them on her shoulders gently like he was settling a jacket. You saved my life, he said. No drama, just the truth passing between them like a coin that fit both hands. I should be mad you tricked me. I'm not. Zoe. I'm grateful to a degree that makes words dumb. She blinked fast, relief and fear wrestling. She told me to make sure you kept breathing, she whispered. She used to say you could fix anything if you kept looking. So I made you keep looking. I will, he said. And I'll look at you, too. He glanced past her, toward where the path bent back to town. Where's your mom? Zoe's mouth did the kind of shrug mouths do when truths are too big for sentences. Home. Some days are good. Some days I'm the mom. She dug in her hoodie pocket and produced a crumpled bus pass and a lip balm that had seen better decisions. I can take care of us most days, she added defensively, as if she'd had to say it too many times to too many adults who weren't listening. I just needed you to not disappear. He thought of the grave hill, of the breathing frames, of the violets and the pebbles, and the way the locket had warmed in his hand like a pulse. He thought of a kid with a backpack full of dirt walking through a sleeping town because love had given her instructions. Okay, he said, and the word wasn't a placeholder, it was a hinge. Okay, here's what's going to happen next. He told her about lawyers that help for free and papers one can file, and the way guardianship could be a bridge instead of a prison. He told her he would not take her from her mother. He would make sure someone took care of both of them. He told her he had room in his small life for one more large thing. He told her he would show up. He would prove it with groceries and rides and a phone number that did not go to voicemail. He said it the way people say pledges to flags and lovers. She watched him with suspicion born from years of somebody promising and then forgetting, years that sagged foundations. You swear, she said finally. On Lily. He smiled, broken and new. On Lily and on thunder counting and on the stage rock and on a terrible photo booth strip where my eyes were closed. She almost laughed. It came out like a hiccup. She wiped her nose with the back of her hand and stuck that hand out between them like a contract. He shook it solemnly, then, because he was braver than he'd been in years, pulled her into a hug that was careful and fierce at the same time. When they walked back to the cemetery that evening, the rain had polished everything. Evergreen Rest looked less like a place where things ended and more like a place where someone had set down brightness to rest a minute. They stopped at Lily's Hill. The mound had changed. Not bigger. Not smaller. Relaxed. That was the word that came to him. Ridiculous. But tell me, what would you have done if you were in his shoes? Would you have believed the signs or walked away? Comment your thoughts below because your answer might just surprise someone reading. And don't scroll yet. Hit that subscribe button right now and turn on your notification bell so you won't miss the next story that's going to shake your heart even harder. Because sometimes love doesn't end. It just finds a new way to speak.